this video, we are going to talk about how to simplify a square root. Now, in order for this process to be efficient, I went ahead and created this chart. If you click on the little plus sign here, you will see the numbers and then their powers. Squares, cubes, fourth, and fifth powers. For this specific example, because this is a square root, we're only going to use the squares. But the same idea will be good for the cubes and the fourth power and the fifth power. Let me explain what we're going to do. Okay, so our goal is to simplify square root of 48. The first thing we should ask ourselves, when we look at the squares over here, we're just going to eyeball them, is there a number that matches whatever is under the root? Do we see 48? The answer is no. Actually, if this was 49, then it would have been 7, but 48 is not 49. We don't see anything. What that means is that if the root can be simplified, some part of it is still going to stay. So we won't be able to just say, okay, this is equal 3 or something, because we're going to have some kind of root in there. Okay, but let me explain what to do. Okay, so once you determine that you do not see any numbers that match the number under the root, you're going to then write down all the squares that are below this number, less than 49. I'm sorry, less than 48. So that would be 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, stop, right? Because the next is 49 and that's already larger than 48. We want all the numbers smaller than 48. Okay, so these are our numbers. Next, we are going to open Desmos calculator. So let's just go, because I'm splitting the screen, it's not going to open in the same window, but that's okay. We'll just go to the next window. Okay, then you take your number, the 48, and you're going to start over here. Don't start at 4, start at the last number that's less than 48. Okay, start at that number and start dividing the number 48 by that number. If you get an integer, in other words, no decimals, then you stop. Okay, is 48 divisible by 36? No, because we can see that it's 1.33 and that's not a whole number, so we're sure that that's not going to be 36. Okay, let's move to the next one. How about 25? No, we see some decimals, so that doesn't work. Okay, how about 16? Yes. Okay, so we were able to get to this number and then we stop. And we can see that 48 can be written as 16 multiplied by 3. In other words, I can just even right here check that out and I can see that 16 times 3 is 48. Okay, that will go in the following blank, in this blank. Next, how do you simplify the root? So what you're able to do is you wrote 48 as some square, some nice perfect square multiplied by another number. And again, remember what was that number? That number was 3. Okay? And then we are going to represent square root of 48 as 16 times 3. Next, we are going to break the root. What does that mean? Well, we are going to say, okay, this is 16, square root of 16, multiplied by square root of 3. You can always do that. You can break the root, in other words, separate it at the times. You cannot do it at a plus or minus, but you can do it at the times. And guess what? This right here can be simplified. And that is, of course, going to be 4, because we were able to see that from the chart, right? Corresponding to 16, what number is squared is 16? 4. And you can just find this on the calculator. Okay, that's going to be 4. All right, so this part is going to be 4, and then 4 square root of 3 is the answer. Now, one last thing I'm going to tell you is how do you check your work? How do you know that you got this right? What you do is you open the calculator again. I'm just going to reopen it. Compute on the calculator the original problem. So square root of 48. Also compute 4 square root of 3. And if the answers are the same, you know 100% you got this right.